when my greedy daughter told me I wasn't welcome at her Father's Day dinner. Their mortgage check was canceled. By me. She kicked me out. Before I tell you exactly how I turned their perfect, curated life upside down, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. And please hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever had to teach someone a lesson they would never forget. My name is Gregory. I am 70 years old, and my hands, though gnarled with arthritis and stained with wood varnish, are steady. They have to be. The tiny chisel makes a soft shing sound as it shaves a curl of cherry wood from the corner of the music box. This is my sanctuary, a small, dusty workshop behind the modest apartment my family believes is all I can afford. The air smells of pine walnut and linseed oil. It is the only air I can breathe without feeling like I am suffocating. This music box has taken me 6 weeks. 6 weeks of waking before the dawn of sanding until my fingers were raw of carving the intricate inlay of a single linden flower on the lid. It is a perfect replica of the one my wife Lila cherished. Lila has been gone for 3 years. Since then, this workshop is the only place I feel her presence. I carefully install the tiny gleaming Swiss mechanism. I turn the key. A clear, delicate melody fills the small space. Our love is here to stay. Our song. This gift is for Trevor, my son-in-law. A Father's Day gift. A piece of my heart, a piece of Lila. I am just putting the finishing touches on the base, about to carve the final initial L for Lila, when the phone rings. The sound is jarring. It slices through the melody like a buzzsaw. I startle. The chisel slips, gouging a deep, ugly scratch right next to the L. A permanent scar. I stare at it, my chest tightening. I wipe my hands on my leather apron and pick up the phone. Gregory speaking. Dad. Where are you? It's Amanda, my daughter, 35 years old. Her voice is not a question. It is an accusation. Sharp, high-strung, and impatient. It's 5:32. Dinner is at 6. The Harrisons are already here. You cannot be late. I look at the clock. 5:32 p.m. I'm on my way, Amanda. I was just finishing. Dad, she cuts me off. I can hear her exhaling a sound of pure exasperation that I have come to know well. Please, I am begging you, wear the blue shirt, the Ralph Lauren one I bought you. I look down at my flannel shirt, soft with age and sprinkled with fine sawdust. And please, she continues, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, do not bring any of those wooden things. You know the Harrisons, they are very sophisticated. This dinner is extremely important for Trevor. Important for Trevor, her husband. It is always important for Trevor. Trevor, the man who lives in an $800,000 house he cannot afford. Trevor, the investment consultant, who has not closed a deal in 2 years. I have a gift for Trevor, for Father's Day. I say, my voice flat. A gift, Dad, I told you. I will be there, I interrupt. A pause. I hear Trevor's muffled voice in the background. Just tell him to hurry and to park down the street. Amanda comes back on. Just try not to make things awkward. Please. The line clicks dead. She did not say, I love you. She did not say, drive safe. Just a command. I look at the music box. The 6 weeks of love and precision now feel foolish. The scratch next to the L seems to mock me. I wrap the box, not in fancy paper, in simple brown craft paper tied with a piece of twine. I will not be wearing the blue shirt. My 1998 Ford F-150 rattles as it turns into the Heights. The neighborhood is an insult of new money. Manicured lawns that look like plastic carpets. McMansions shoved so close together they block out the sun. My old truck with its fading paint and honest rust is a dirty word in this clean, sterile sentence. I park 3 blocks away just as I am sure Trevor instructed. I do not want to embarrass them. As I walk, I see it. Parked right in their driveway. A brand new, gleaming black BMW 7 Series. It still has the temporary plates from the dealership. The Harrisons. I walk up the stone pathway. The door swings open before I can knock. Trevor stands there, 38 years old, looking like a magazine advertisement. He is wearing a $300 Loro Piana polo shirt and shorts so clean they must have been pressed. His hair is perfectly gelled. He looks at me. His eyes do not scan me. They assess me. They take in my simple flannel shirt, my clean work pants, my old boots. Then his gaze drops to the brown paper package in my hands. His lip curls just slightly, a flicker of pure contempt. "Oh, you're here," he says. His voice is flat. Everyone is on the patio. He does not invite me in. He simply turns and walks away, leaving me to close the heavy mahogany door behind myself. The house smells like lemon-scented floor wax and simmering anxiety. I know this house. I know every square foot of it. I chose the lot. I approved the blueprints. I paid for the construction. They do not know this. They think Trevor's investment fund found a miracle rent-to-own deal. Trevor, who bankrupted 3 startups, now believes he is a financial wizard. He is simply living on an allowance he is too arrogant to see. I can hear laughter from the back patio, Mr. Harrison's booming, self-satisfied laugh. I take a deep breath. I put on the mask of the simple, poor old father. I walk outside. The patio is magnificent. A stainless steel outdoor kitchen, a fire pit, expensive wicker furniture. Mr. Harrison, Trevor's father, is holding a heavy glass of scotch. He is mid-story, voice booming across the lawn. And the Brunello and Tuscany, I tell you, absolutely divine. $5,000 a case, but worth every single penny. Mrs. Harrison, a thin, brittle woman, dripping with delicate gold jewelry, turns her head as I approach. Her eyes rake over me. "Gregory, how nice that you could make it," she says. Her voice is layered with a pity so thick I could cut it with a knife. "Amanda told us you are very busy with your workshop." "I always have time for my family," I reply. Amanda rushes over, her smile bright and false. "Dad, you made it." She gestures to a single isolated chair at the far end of the table next to the grill, away from the main conversation. "Why don't you sit right here? Can I get you a nice glass of water?" I look at the bottle on the table. A deep red wine. A Chateau Margaux. A $500 bottle. The same one I gave Trevor for Christmas last year, which he claimed was a corporate gift. "I could have a glass of that scotch," I say, pointing to Mr. Harrison's drink. Amanda's smile falters. "Oh, Dad, I think Trevor only bought enough for our guests. Water is healthier for you anyway." I sit, invisible. I am a ghost at their feast. I listen to them. They talk about stock portfolios. They talk about their exclusive golf club. They talk about the Hamptons. I built Linden Capital from nothing. I sold my engineering firm for $80 million. I could buy this golf club and turn it into a public park just to spite them. But I sip my water. Because of Lila. "Don't let the money ruin him, Gregory," she had whispered to me from her hospital bed, her hand frail in mine. "Let him make his own way. Let him love you for being his father, not his bank." I kept that promise. I created the illusion. I live in the small apartment. I drive the old truck. I let my daughter believe I am a simple man, a poor man, so she would build a life based on character, not on an inheritance. I look at her now, laughing at one of Mr. Harrison's jokes, her eyes shining with admiration for his wealth. My promise, I realize, has been a terrible failure. "Time for Father's Day gifts," Amanda announces, clapping her hands with forced cheer. Mr. Harrison goes first. He hands Trevor a long leather bag. "A new set of Callaway's Sun, the latest." "Wow, Dad. These are $4,000. Trevor exclaims, his voice thick with genuine adoration. Then Trevor hands his father a small, heavy box. Happy Father's Day, Dad. Mr. Harrison opens it. A Rolex Submariner. Oh, Trevor. You shouldn't have. He booms, but he is already strapping it to his wrist, holding it up to the light. Mrs. Harrison turns to me. Her smile is a weapon. Your turn, Gregory. The patio falls silent. All of them. Amanda, Trevor, the Harrisons stare at me. I pick up my brown paper package. It looks pathetic next to the designer bags and velvet boxes. For Trevor, Happy Father's Day. He takes it. He can feel how light it is. He unwraps the paper slowly, his expression already braced for disappointment. When he sees the cherry wood music box, his face freezes. He does not open it. He does not turn the key. What is that? Mrs. Harrison asks, leaning in. Trevor lets out a short, dry laugh. Thanks, Dad. But we don't really have room for old things. It doesn't really match the decor. He places the box on the table, not in front of him. He slides it over by the half-eaten bread basket. An afterthought. Trash. Mr. Harrison laughs. A loud booming sound. A toy, Gregory. You still making those in your shed? I thought that was just a hobby. My father is an artisan, Amanda says quickly, her cheeks flushing. Of course, dear, Trevor says, patting her hand. It's very rustic. And just like that, they move on. They talk about their upcoming trip to Aspen. My music box, 6 weeks of my life. The echo of my wife sits on the table, rejected. I stand up. I need to use the restroom. Amanda follows me inside. The moment the glass door slides shut, cutting off the patio laughter, she spins on me. Her face is no longer smiling. It is a tight red mask of fury. What the hell was that? She hisses, her voice low and violent. I was giving Trevor his gift. A wooden box, a toy. Are you trying to embarrass me after I specifically told you they were sophisticated? You show up here looking like a homeless person and you bring kindling. It was a replica of your mother's. I don't care, she screams. Mom is gone. We are trying to build a future here. Trevor is trying to impress his parents. They are important people. What do they think I married into when you bring a piece of junk like that? Junk. The word hangs in the air. Trevor slides the door open. He heard her shout. He looks at me, and all pretense of politeness is gone. Amanda, just tell him to leave. He's ruining the entire evening. Amanda does not hesitate. She walks to the back door, the one that leads to the side yard. She opens it. Dad, I think you should go. I'll call you. You're making everyone uncomfortable. I look at my daughter. Her eyes are cold. There is no apology in them, only shame. Her shame projected onto me. I look at Trevor. He is standing with his arms crossed, a smirk on his face. I understand. They did not just forget who I was. They had actively rewritten it. I am the poor relative, the embarrassing burden. I walk past them. I do not say a word. I go back to the patio. The Harrisons look up, surprised. I walk past their table, pick up the rejected music box, and cradle it in my hand. I walk to the back door where Amanda is still holding it open. Thank you for dinner, Amanda, I say. My voice is quiet. You have made everything perfectly clear. I walk out into the night air. I do not look back. The silence on my drive is not defeat. It is confirmation. It is time. The engine of the old Ford rattled a rhythmic thunk, thunk, thunk that echoed in the quiet, wealthy street. I drove away from the $800,000 house, my house, leaving them to their laughter and their expensive wine. A tear tracked down my weathered cheek, hot and stinging. But it was not a tear of sadness. It was rage. A cold, quiet 70-year-old rage that had been simmering for 3 years and had finally decisively come to a boil. Junk. My Amanda, my little girl, the one I taught to ride a bike and bait a hook, had looked at the music box I poured my soul into, the box I made as a perfect copy of her mother's, and she called it junk. Embarrassing. Trevor, that arrogant, parasitic fool, had called my life, my work, my sacrifice. Embarrassing. They kicked me out. My own daughter kicked me out on Father's Day, tossing me aside like a piece of trash in front of the very people she was so desperate to impress. They thought I was a burden, a poor, simple-minded old man living on a meager pension, a problem to be managed, an embarrassment to be hidden away until they needed something. I wiped the tear away with the back of my rough, sawdust-covered hand. I did not drive toward my small two-bedroom apartment in the suburbs. That was where they expected me to go. They pictured me crawling back to my little hole, the one they thought I rented, with what little money I had. They pictured me sitting in my worn-out armchair, defeated and pathetic, waiting by the phone until Amanda decided I had been punished enough. They were wrong. I did not take the suburban access road. I took the exit for downtown. The city skyline rose up in front of me, a wall of glass and steel, reflecting the last fiery light of the setting sun. My old truck, a deliberate costume I had worn for years, rumbled past the trendy restaurants, past the theaters. I drove straight into the heart of the financial district. I turned into the private guarded entrance of the underground garage of the Linden Tower. It is the tallest, most exclusive building in the state. A security guard in a sharp, pressed uniform stepped out of the booth. His hand raised, his expression annoyed at the sight of my beat-up truck. I did not slow down. I simply rolled down my window. He saw my face. His expression shifted instantly from annoyance to deference to a flicker of panic. "Mr. Linden, sir," he stammered, scrambling backward. "My apologies." The heavy steel gate slid open. I parked the truck in the reserved space right next to the private elevator. The space marked CEO. I walked across the polished granite floor of the subterranean lobby, my old work boots echoing loudly in the silence. I ignored the looks from the night staff. I walked straight to the private elevator bank, the one that requires a special key. I did not use a key. I pressed my thumb against the flat, dark biometric scanner. A small green light flashed. A soft, synthesized voice whispered, "Access granted, Gregory Linden." The brushed steel doors slid open. I stepped inside. I pressed the only button available. PH Penthouse. The elevator ascended in absolute silence. No music. No chime for the floors. Just the whisper of perfectly balanced mechanics rising 60 stories. When the doors slid open, they did so without a sound, revealing a space that was the exact opposite of my workshop. This was not a room. It was an expanse. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the penthouse, and the city lights glittered below me like a carpet of fallen stars. The floors were polished black marble. The air was still. I walked past the enormous empty granite reception desk. My work boots, still dusted with cherry wood shavings, echoed in the cavernous silence. I was the only one here. I am always the only one here. On the far wall, a simple, understated brass plaque gleamed in the low light. Linden Capital. Lila's maiden name. Lila Linden. The only part of my true life I ever allowed the world to see, and even then I hid behind the name of my dead wife. I walked to the center of the room, to the desk. It was not a desk. It was a monolith. A single massive piece of polished mahogany that spanned 12 feet. It was completely empty. No computer, no photographs, no stacks of paper. I only come here when I need to think, or when I need to act. I sat down in the high-backed leather chair. It felt cold against my flannel shirt. My name is Gregory Linden, and I am not a poor carpenter. That was a costume, a character I created. A role I played for 10 agonizing years, hoping to protect my daughter from the very poison that now I realized ran thick in her veins. I am the founder. I am the CEO. I am the sole shareholder of this firm. I looked out the window. 10 years ago, I sold Linden Engineering, the company I started in a one-car garage with a $5,000 loan. The company I built into a global leader in micro-propulsion systems. I sold it for $80 million. Cash. Amanda was 25 then. Bright. Full of potential. Trevor hadn't sunk his claws into her yet. I remember the day the wire transfer hit. Lila was still with me. She wasn't sick yet. We sat at our small kitchen table, the same one I still eat at, and looked at the balance on a cheap laptop screen. So many zeros, they looked like a mistake. Lila put her hand on mine. Her hands were soft, not like mine. "Gregory," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Don't let this change us. And don't let it ruin her. Don't let her know." Lila always believed that money didn't build character. She said it just revealed the rotting spaces where character should have been. She believed it was a corrosive, a sickness that turned families into territories and love into a transaction. So I made a promise. I would hide it. I created Linden Capital to manage the assets, a ghost firm run by lawyers and accountants. And I created Gregory the Carpenter. I bought the small 2-bedroom apartment in a decent, forgettable suburb, the one they think I rent. I bought the old truck, the one they despise. I found the community workshop, the one that became my only true home. I did it all to protect Amanda from the poison. I wanted her to value work, not wealth. I wanted her to love me for who I was, not for what I had. I wanted her to become a woman of substance, not a woman of entitlement. I leaned forward on the cold, polished surface of the desk. Lila was right. God, how she was right. The money is a poison, and Amanda is sick with it. She and that parasitic husband of hers. They looked at me tonight. They did not see a father. They saw a problem. A low-value asset taking up space. An embarrassment to be managed. A piece of junk to be discarded when he became inconvenient, just like the music box. They kicked me out of my own house. The $800,000 house that I paid for. The house I bought through a trust, paying the mortgage every month as an anonymous investment that Trevor, the financial genius, bragged to his in-laws about securing. They sneered at the gift I made with my own hands. My daughter looked at me tonight, not with love, but with shame. She was ashamed of me, the man who gave her everything, all because she wanted to impress a family of shallow, arrogant fools who measure a man's worth by the watch on his wrist. I looked at the sleek black phone on the desk, a secure direct line to my inner circle. The time for protecting Amanda is over. The time for teaching her has begun. I picked up the receiver. The cool, heavy plastic felt solid in my hand. "Get me Petrov," I said. "Now." The penthouse doors slid open again. This time the room was not empty. Petrov walked in. He is 65 with a sharp Slavic face and eyes that have seen everything. He wore a perfectly tailored Savile Row suit even at this hour. He is my chief counsel, my fixer, and the only man on earth who knew me both before the 80 million and after. He stopped short when he saw me. He looked at my flannel shirt, my work-worn hands clutching the rejected music box on the vast mahogany desk, and the sawdust on my boots that was now a faint dusty film on his marble floor. "Gregory," he said. His voice was gravelly. "You called me here at 9 p.m. on a Sunday. You look like you just saw a ghost." I spun my chair to face the window, looking down at the city lights. They looked cold, angry. "Worse, Petrov. I just saw my daughter." He waited. He knew this tone. This was not the carpenter Gregory. This was the CEO Gregory. "She kicked me out." Petrov did not move. "Kicked you out." Of where I let out a short, bitter laugh. Out of my own house, the house I bought for her. She kicked me out in front of her new wealthy in-laws because I was embarrassing her. I turned back to face him. The rage was so cold now it felt like ice in my veins. She told me I was making everyone uncomfortable. Her husband, that sniveling leech Trevor, called my gift junk. They told me to leave. Petrov's face hardened. He walked over to the bar, poured 2 fingers of scotch without asking, and slid the heavy crystal glass across the desk to me. I ignored it. They think I'm a homeless old man, Petrov, a charity case. Amanda told her new family I am a broke retired laborer living on Social Security. She told them I was a burden. Petrov sat down in the leather chair opposite me. His professional demeanor was gone. Now he just looked like my oldest friend. And he looked angry. After everything. After all the years you protected her, shielded her. She does this. I nodded slowly. She did. She and that husband of hers. They believe their own lies. They believe they are self-made, living in that expensive house, driving those new cars. They have no idea that the investment fund that pays for their entire life is me. I picked up the secure phone line. They think I'm a burden, I said. They think I'm a poor, simple old man. Petrov leaned forward, his eyes glinting. What are you going to do, Gregory? I looked at him. The carpenter was gone. The mask was off. I am going to show them exactly what this poor, simple old man can do. Petrov, pull up the Amanda Linden Real Estate Trust, I commanded. My voice was no longer the soft, worn-down tone of a simple carpenter. It was the voice that had built an $80 million company. It was the voice that did not tolerate failure. Petrov nodded, not speaking. He moved to a secure terminal against the wall. He typed in a series of codes, his fingers flying across the keypad. A moment later, the massive wall-mounted screen that had been disguised as a piece of abstract art flickered to life. Documents appeared, legal binding and cold. There it is, I said, pointing. This was the truth of the house. 5 years ago, when Amanda and Trevor were getting married, they were looking at tiny, run-down apartments they couldn't afford. Trevor, with his pathetic salary and massive ego, was complaining. He said Amanda deserved better. He was right. She did. But better was supposed to be a life he built, not one I paid for. But I gave in. I saw my daughter in love, and I was weak, so I bought the house, the $800,000 McMansion in the Heights. But I did not give it to them. A gift I knew would be consumed. It would be mortgaged, leveraged, and lost within a year. Trevor was a financial black hole. Instead, I placed it in a revocable trust. The Amanda Linden Real Estate Trust. The sole trustee, Linden Capital. They never read the fine print, I said to Petrov, who was now standing beside me looking at the documents on the screen. They were so excited by the house they just signed. I had to invent a lie to protect my lie. I couldn't have Gregory the carpenter suddenly produce an $800,000 house. So I told Trevor, my Trevor, the one I created, that I had a contact. An old army buddy who was now a partner at a very private, very exclusive equity firm. I told him this firm, as a community investment, bought properties for high-potential young professionals. I told him this firm would cover the down payment and offer a special rent-to-own contract structured as an investment. Trevor, desperate to look like a genius to his new wife, and her arrogant parents, jumped at it. He took all the credit. He told everyone he had negotiated this brilliant deal. He told them his financial acumen had secured their future. He never even questioned it. He never wondered why the firm was called Linden Capital. He was too blinded by his own reflection. And the mortgage? Petrov asked, though he already knew the answer. That's the best part, I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. He thinks he's been paying it. He thinks the money just appears. I brought up another file on the screen. The Lila Linden family annuity. I set up a separate account. I explained, though Petrov had drafted the documents himself. Every month for 5 years, this annuity has deposited exactly $4,500 into their joint checking account, enough to cover the mortgage payment and the leases on their 2 BMWs. Trevor, the genius. He told Amanda it was the dividend from his investments. He was not a consultant. He was not a wizard. He was a glorified delivery boy for his own allowance. He used my money, I said, my voice dropping, the ice forming again. He used my money to buy the Rolex he gave his father tonight. He used my money to buy the $500 bottle of wine they refused to share with me. He used my money to build the very platform he stood on, so he could look down on me and call me junk. I looked at Petrov. He thought I was a poor old man living on scraps. He never realized I was the bank. He and my daughter, they didn't just bite the hand that fed them, Petrov. They spat on it. They tried to chew it off. The rage was so clean now, so pure. It wasn't hot. It was a perfect cold engine. They believe they are entitled to that house, I said. They believe they are entitled to my money. Amanda believes she is entitled to an inheritance. They have just proven in the most public and humiliating way possible that they are entitled to nothing. I pointed to the trust document on the screen. Now, Petrov, find the clause. The one you warned me was too harsh. The one Lila insisted we include. They forgot clause 7.4, I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence of the penthouse office like a diamond cutter on glass. Petrov stopped scrolling. He looked up from the screen, his sharp eyes meeting mine. He didn't need to ask what clause 7.4 was. He had drafted it. He had also argued against it. Gregory, he had said all those years ago, his brow furrowed with concern. This is unorthodox. You are tying a significant legal trust to something as subjective as respect and loyalty. It's an emotional clause in a financial document. It's messy. It could be contested. I remember looking at Lila, who was sitting beside me in Petrov's office, her hands folded in her lap. She was the one who had insisted. She looked at Petrov with that clear, unwavering gaze of hers. Character is the only collateral that matters, Mr. Petrov, she said. If our daughter grows up to be someone who does not respect her own father, then she does not deserve the protection of his wealth. Put it in. And now, 10 years later, Petrov knew exactly what I was talking about. Clause 7.4. He repeated, his voice a low rumble. He typed a new command. The financial data on the wall screen was replaced by a wall of dense legal text. He found the section and highlighted it. He put on a pair of reading glasses, not because he needed them, but because it was a habit. It was his armor. He stood and read it aloud, his voice echoing slightly in the vast empty room. Clause 7, Section 4. The Lila Linden Moral Covenant, he began. This trust and all disbursements, gifts, and assets contained within it, including but not limited to the property at 425 Willow Creek Drive, and all associated payments are conditional. The primary beneficiary, Amanda Linden, is bound by a covenant of fundamental respect, filial piety, and familial loyalty to the founder, Gregory Linden. Petrov paused, taking a breath before reading the kill shot. Should the beneficiary or any spouse legally associated with the beneficiary engage in any action deemed as gross public disrespect, emotional abandonment, slander against the founder's character, or a bad faith attempt to alienate the founder from his family, this covenant is considered breached. He looked at me over the rim of his glasses. I just nodded. Go on. Upon any such breach confirmed solely at the discretion of the founder or his legal counsel, Petrov continued, the trust will immediately and irrevocably suspend all financial disbursements to the beneficiary. All assets held within the trust, including the property at 425 Willow Creek Drive, will revert to the full and unencumbered control of Linden Capital. The beneficiary and all associated parties will be given 30 days to vacate the property. This clause is absolute and not subject to appeal. He finished reading. The silence that filled the room was heavier, more final than any sound could ever be. Gross public disrespect. I whispered the words, tasting like ash. She called my gift junk in front of her new important family. Emotional abandonment, I said louder now. She kicked me out of my own house. Her father, on Father's Day. She told me I was making everyone uncomfortable. Slander against the founder's character, I said, standing up, my hands clenched into fists. They told the Harrisons I was a broke old man on Social Security, a burden, a charity case. They built their entire life on the lie of my poverty and then hated me for it. I walked to the window and stared down at the glittering, uncaring city. They didn't just breach the covenant, Petrov. They took a sledgehammer to it. They spat on Lila's memory. They spat on me. I turned around. My face felt like it was carved from stone. There was no sadness left. Just a cold, hard clarity. Cancel the mortgage payment, I ordered. Petrov did not flinch. Gregory, you understand what this means. The bank will immediately move to foreclose. They will not wait. I understand, I said. Cancel it. Effective immediately. Tonight. I want that payment reversed. I paused, a new thought solidifying sharp and clean. And Petrov, I said, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face for the first time that night. Send the non-payment notification and the 30-day default warning directly to the co-signers. Send it to Mr. and Mrs. Harrison. Petrov's professional mask broke for just a second. A flicker of a smile played on his lips. The Harrisons, but they'll be on the hook for the full 800,000. They are the co-signers, I said. They are important people. They are sophisticated. They wanted to be in business with Trevor. Now they are. I wanted them to be the first to know. I wanted them to be the ones to make the panicked phone call. I wanted them to be the ones to realize that the arrogant son-in-law they so admired was a fraud, and that the poor old man they sneered at was the one who held their entire financial future in his calloused, sawdust-covered hands. Petrov turned back to his terminal. Consider it done, Gregory. The war had begun, and I had just fired the first cannon. The sun streamed through the high, dusty windows of the community woodshop. Motes of sawdust danced in the golden light. The air was warm, filled with the sharp, clean scent of pine and the hum of a distant lathe. This was my church. A small 10-year-old boy named Leo was frowning. His tongue stuck out in concentration as he fumbled with a small block of pine and a carving knife. I can't get the wing right, Mr. G, he said, his voice tight with frustration. It keeps splitting. I placed my hand over his, my real hand, the one with calluses from the tools, not from signing checks. You're fighting it, Leo, I said, my voice gentle. You don't force the wood. You have to listen to it. Feel which way the grain wants to go. Let the knife do the work. Like this. I guided his hand, showing him how to make a shallow, clean stop cut, then slice away the small chip. A wing began to emerge from the block. His eyes went wide with wonder. Wow, he whispered. This was my real life. Not the cold marble of the penthouse. Not the digital glow of stock tickers. This, the smell of cedar. The quiet focus of a child learning. The simple, honest act of creating something from nothing. Lila had been the one to push me here back when I first sold the company. You're going to go mad in that glass tower, Gregory. She had warned, her hand on my cheek. You're a man who needs sawdust on his shirt. Go build something. Go be something. She was right, as always. Last night in that cold office, I was the CEO. I was the hammer. I was Gregory Linden, the man who just destroyed his daughter's financial future. But this morning I was just Mr. G, the old carpenter teaching a kid how to carve a bird. I felt at peace. The decision was made. The orders were given. The sequence was in motion. I was just waiting. I knew the banks opened at 9 a.m. I knew the wire transfer for the mortgage, the one that usually posted on the first business day of the month, would not arrive. I knew the bank's automated system would generate a non-payment notification. And I knew that notification would be sent as per my explicit instructions, not just to Trevor, but to the co-signers, to the Harrisons. I checked the old clock on the workshop wall. 9:03. Any second now. I handed the nearly finished bird back to Leo. "You do the I said. Just a small tap. As he focused, my phone buried deep in the pocket of my work jeans began to vibrate. It was a heavy, angry buzz. I smiled at Leo. "Keep going. You're doing great." I pulled the phone out. The screen was bright with a name I had once loved. Amanda. I let it buzz. I let her panic build 3,000 miles away. I let her world built on arrogance and my invisible money teeter on the edge of the cliff she had pushed me from. I watched Leo carefully tap the knife to make the bird's eye. The phone stopped buzzing. A moment of silence. Then it started again, immediately, viciously. "Excuse me a moment, Leo," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "I have to take this." I stepped out into the bright morning sun, the smell of sawdust following me. I looked at the screaming phone. I let it ring one more time. Then, and only then, I answered. I pressed the green button and lifted the phone to my ear. Before I could even say hello, the sound exploded, a shriek so high-pitched and raw that I had to pull the phone away for a second. "Dad, what did you do?" It was not a question. It was an accusation torn from her throat. I stepped further away from the workshop door, turning my back so Leo wouldn't see the cold, hard smile I knew was spreading across my face. I cleared my throat carefully, manufacturing the persona of the confused, slightly deaf old man she believed me to be. "Amanda, honey, is that you? You're screaming. I can't understand what you're saying." "Don't you play dumb with me," she howled. The sound was ragged. She was crying, but not from sadness, from pure, unadulterated terror. The bank. The bank just called. The mortgage payment was canceled. They said the Linden Trust suspended all payments. "What is the Linden Trust? What did you do?" I let the silence hang for a moment, picturing her standing in the immaculate $80,000 kitchen I paid for her perfect, curated life, collapsing around her in real time. "A trust," I said, injecting just the right amount of quavering confusion into my voice. "Amanda, what are you talking about? A Linden Trust like your mother's family? I don't know anything about that. You know I don't handle those complicated bank things. I'm just a carpenter, sweetheart. You must have the wrong number." "It's not the wrong number," she screamed. I could hear Trevor in the background. Not his words, just a frantic, high-pitched yelling. He was panicking. "The bank said the trust that owns the house canceled the payment. They said we have 30 days. 30 days, Dad, before they foreclose." "Foreclose," I said, letting my voice crack. "Oh my goodness, Amanda, that's terrible. But how can I help? You know I don't have any money. I live on my pension. Maybe you should call Trevor's investments." That was the spark on the gasoline. "The Harrisons," she shrieked, and the sound was so full of animal fear that it almost made me feel a flicker of pity. Almost. "The bank called the Harrisons. They co-signed the loan, Dad. They co-signed it. The bank told them they are now responsible for the full $800,000. They are on their way here right now, and they are going to kill us." I could hear it clearly now. Trevor was in the background sobbing. A full-grown man sobbing like a child. "She's right. They're going to sue us. They're going to take everything. It's over. It's over." "Amanda," I said, my voice full of practiced false concern. calm down. I'm sure it's just a computer mistake. Why don't you just call your fund manager, the one who got you the house? You're the one who knew him, she screamed back. Your army buddy, the partner at the equity firm, you have to call him, you have to fix this now. I paused. I let her hang on that desperate, frantic hope. Amanda, I said, my voice trembling with feigned old age. I think you're confused, honey. I don't have an army buddy. I was never in the army. I think you're mixing me up with someone else. The silence on the other end of the line was heavier than a block of granite. It was a silence so complete I could hear her sharp, shallow breathing. All the lies, all the arrogance, all the smug superiority of the night before had just crashed into the brick wall of reality. She knew. In that second, she knew. You lying bastard, she whispered, her voice choking with a new kind of hatred, a hatred born not of disrespect, but of dawning comprehension. You were lying. This whole time. There is no army buddy. It was you. The Linden Trust. Linden. Lila Linden. Oh my God. It was you. It was always you. Honey, you're not making any sense, I said softly. You're upset. Why don't you— You're lying, she roared, finding her voice again. But this time it was not panic. It was the raw scream of a cornered animal. I know you're lying. I know this was you. You did this to us. I held the phone away from my ear, a small, sad smile on my face. The bird was finished. The lesson had begun. I have to go now, Amanda, I said, my voice once again, the calm, simple carpenter. I'm busy. I'm teaching a young boy how to finish carving a music box. I paused, then delivered the final quiet blow. Good luck with the Harrisons. I pressed the end call button, cutting off her next scream mid-syllable. I blocked her number, then Trevor's. I turned off the phone and slid it back into my pocket. The sun was warm. The smell of pine was sharp and clean. Leo was patiently sanding the wing of his bird. How's it looking, Mr. G? He asked, holding it up. I looked at the simple, honest piece of wood. I looked at the boy's proud, open face. It looks perfect, Leo, I said. Absolutely perfect. I finished my day at the workshop at 5 p.m., just like I always do. I swept the floor, put my tools away, and said goodbye to Leo and the other volunteers. The peace of the place settled over me. I had made my decision. The consequences were now theirs to manage, not mine. I walked out into the late afternoon light, carrying my old metal lunchbox. The parking lot was mostly empty, just my old truck and a few other cars. I was tired, but it was a good, clean physical exhaustion, the kind that comes from honest work. I was fumbling for my keys when I heard it. The sound of a high-performance engine being pushed too hard. A black BMW, their BMW, screeched into the parking lot, fishtailing on the gravel. It slammed to a stop just inches from my truck, blocking me in. The engine cut off, and the sudden silence was more violent than the noise. The doors flew open. It was not the same polished, arrogant couple from last night. Amanda stumbled out of the passenger side. Her expensive hair was a tangled mess falling out of its clip. Her eyes were red-rimmed and swollen. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks. She was wearing yesterday's clothes. Trevor got out from the driver's side. His $300 polo shirt was ripped at the collar. But it was his face that caught my attention. 4 angry red claw marks ran from his right eye down to his jawline. Mrs. Harrison, I thought to myself. Looks like she finally found a use for those manicured nails. They looked like they had been through a war, and I knew with a deep, cold satisfaction that they had. The Harrisons, faced with an $800,000 bill, had clearly unleashed their fury. "Dad!" Amanda cried out. Her voice was a broken, gasping sound. She ran toward me, not with anger, but with the raw panic of a child who has finally understood that the monster under the bed is real. Trevor followed his movements jerky and filled with a rage he could no longer contain. "You!" he hissed. He pointed a trembling finger at me, his face contorted. "You did this! You did this to us!" I did not move. I just stood there, holding my lunchbox, watching the ruins of their lives approach me. I had built them up with my invisible money, and with one single silent decision, I had pulled the foundation out from under them. And now they were here, standing in the dust of my simple workshop, to face the man they thought was nothing. She stumbled the last few feet and practically collapsed against the side of my truck. She didn't fall to the ground. She knelt. Right there on the dirty gravel of the workshop parking lot, she knelt, her hands grabbing the handle of my truck door as if it were the railing of a sinking ship. "Dad!" She gasped the word tearing out of her. "Dad, I'm sorry. I am so sorry." I just watched her. I did not move to help her up. I did not reach out to comfort her. The Gregory who would have done that, the father who would have dropped everything to soothe her slightest distress, had died last night at that dinner table. The man watching her now was someone else. He was Lyndon. "I'm a terrible daughter," she sobbed, the tears real this time. But they were not tears of remorse. They were tears of terror. "I'm awful. I was so stressed, Dad. You don't know what they're like." Ah, there it was. The excuse. The blame shift. "The Harrisons. They are so difficult," she choked out, pushing her messy hair from her face. "They put so much pressure on Trevor, and he puts it on me. I didn't mean what I said. I was just trying to manage them, to keep them happy. You understand, don't you? I didn't mean it." Trevor was standing a few feet behind her. He wasn't crying. His face was a mask of pale, simmering fury. The 4 red claw marks on his cheek were already starting to swell. He looked like a cornered animal letting his mate try one last desperate plea before he lunged. I looked back down at my daughter, still kneeling in the dirt. "Please, Dad," she begged, her voice dropping to a desperate whisper. "You have to fix this. Whatever you did, just undo it. Please call the bank, reactivate the trust. We can talk about it later. We can go to therapy, whatever you want. But please just fix this before they get here." "Before who gets here?" I asked, my voice flat. "The Harrisons," she wailed. "They're on their way to Trevor's office. They're going to his boss. They're going to tell everyone he's a fraud. They're going to sue us for the $800,000. Dad, they're going to ruin us. They're going to take everything." My money, I thought. They're going to take my money. I remembered all the other times she had used these tears. The time she accidentally maxed out her first credit card in college. I was just so stressed with exams, Dad. The time she wrecked her first car. The other driver came out of nowhere, Dad. The time she needed money to leave her first deadbeat boyfriend, only for me to find out later they had used the money for a trip to Cancun. I just didn't know how to tell you. I had paid for it all. I had fixed it all. I had been the soft place for her to land every single time. And in doing so, I had not built her character. I had simply guaranteed she would never have one. I had created this 35-year-old woman crying in the dirt, not because she had insulted her father, but because her allowance had been cut off. Mom wouldn't want this," she whispered, her voice catching. It was her final desperate move, using the memory of her mother against me. The ice in my veins turned to steel. I looked at her kneeling at my feet, the very picture of a broken, repentant child. And I felt nothing. Just a vast, cold, empty space where my love used to be. I looked past her to Trevor, who was vibrating with impatience. I looked back at Amanda. "I can't," I said. Her head snapped up. The tears stopped frozen by a single simple word. What? What do you mean you can't? I mean, I said, shifting my old metal lunchbox to my other hand. I can't. It's done. She stared at me, her mind refusing to accept the words. But you're the one who did it. Just call them, tell them it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Amanda, I said. It was a consequence. She rose slowly to her feet, her expression of performative sadness melting away, replaced by the same cold reptilian shock I had seen on her face last night. She finally understood. The bank was not going to fix this. I was not going to fix this. This was not a negotiation. This was a judgment. Enough. The word was not a shout. It was a low, guttural growl. Trevor's hand shot out and grabbed Amanda's arm, yanking her to her feet, as if she weighed nothing. The last shred of his sophisticated mask was gone, replaced by the raw, desperate face of a trapped con man. The red claw marks on his cheek looked dark and angry. Stop sniveling, he spat at her, shoving her behind him. He then turned his full, trembling fury on me. You, he hissed. You've been lying, this whole time. You're not some poor old carpenter. You have money, don't you? You are Linden Capital. It was an accusation, but also a desperate question. He was still hoping on some level that this was a nightmare he could wake up from. He's right, Dad, Amanda chimed in, her tears instantly drying, her terror shifting to anger. You've been playing us. You've been sitting back watching us struggle, letting us think you were poor while you're some secret millionaire. Struggle, I said, my voice quiet. You call that house a struggle? You call those cars a struggle? Trevor's face contorted. He took a step toward me, his fists clenched. I needed that house, he screamed, his voice cracking. I used it as collateral. There it was, the real pathetic, rotten truth. Collateral for what, Trevor? I asked, though I already knew. For my investments. For our future. He gestured wildly at Amanda. I have partners. I have deals on the line. I told them I had significant equity. That house was my equity. When the bank forecloses, it's not just the house, it all collapses. I'm ruined, we're ruined. He was breathing hard, his eyes wide with the full scope of his own destruction. He hadn't just been living a lie. He had been leveraging a lie. He had been borrowing money against an asset that was never ever his. You did this to me, he roared, pointing his finger at my face. This is your fault. If you had just been honest, if you hadn't played these sick, twisted games, I wouldn't have had to. Had to what? I asked. Had to use my house as your personal bank. Had to lie to your wife, had to co-sign with her parents knowing you were committing fraud. I did it for her, he screamed, grabbing Amanda's arm again. To give her the life she deserved, the life you were too selfish to give her. You're the one who lied. You let your own daughter believe you were nothing. He was panting now, a cornered animal looking for any possible way to make this my fault, to turn his greed into my sin. You owe us, he whispered, his voice trembling with a profound, unhinged entitlement. After all this, after lying to us, after embarrassing us, you owe us. I looked at him. I looked at my daughter, who was standing behind him, nodding in agreement, her face a mask of resentment. They were united in this. They truly believed that my money was their right, that my life, my assets, my hidden work were all just an inheritance they had been unfairly denied. The last flicker of pity I might have felt for them vanished. I picked up my lunchbox from the ground. I opened the driver's side door of my old truck. I owe you nothing, I said, my voice as flat and final as a closing vault. I got into the truck, put the key in the ignition, and turned it. The old engine coughed, then rumbled to life. Get out of my way. Trevor stood there, frozen, his face a grotesque mask of disbelief and rage. He had played his last card, and it was worthless. I put the truck in reverse. They scrambled backward, stumbling over each other as I backed out of the parking spot. I put the truck in drive and pulled away, leaving them standing there in the gravel, choking on the dust of my old, poor, worthless life. The BMW 7 Series tore out of the gravel lot, fishtailing onto the main road, the tires screaming in protest. Inside the luxury car, the atmosphere was suffocating, a toxic mix of stale air and raw panic. Trevor gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. The 4 red scratches on his cheek, inflicted by his mother-in-law, burned. "He just drove away," Amanda stammered. She was staring out the window, her face pale and streaked with dried tears. "He just left us there." "Shut up. Just shut up, Amanda. I'm thinking." Trevor slammed his fist against the leather-wrapped dashboard. "He played us. That old bastard. He played us. Pretending to be a poor old carpenter, a $1 million trust fund, he was laughing at us. He took the house, Trevor." Amanda whispered, the reality of it finally sinking in. "He's taking the house. The bank. The Harrisons. They're going to sue us. We're ruined." "No," Trevor shouted, swerving around a slower car. "We are not ruined. He won't budge. So we go around him. We find another way." "What other way?" Amanda cried, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch. "He has all the money. He has the lawyers. He has everything. We have nothing." Trevor was silent for a long moment, the only sound the hum of the expensive engine. His eyes narrowed, the frantic panic being replaced by a cold reptilian calculation. He had built his entire identity on this lie, and he was not going to let it go. "He's unstable," Trevor said, his voice suddenly quiet and measured. Amanda looked at him, confused. "What?" "He's clearly erratic," Trevor said, testing the words. "Think about it. A multimillionaire who spends his days in a dusty workshop, who lies to his own family for 10 years, who pretends to be poor, who cuts off his own daughter for what? A perceived slight. That's not normal behavior, Amanda. That is the definition of erratic." A new, horrifying understanding dawned on Amanda's face. She stared at her husband. "Trevor, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting," Trevor said, his lips pulling back in a humorless smile, "that we were right the first time. We just talked to the wrong person. You want to declare him incompetent." The word felt heavy, forbidden. "It's the only way left." Trevor's voice rose again, energized by this new dark path. "It's not even a lie. The man is clearly senile. He's a danger to himself. He's making irrational financial decisions that hurt his family. But Petrov, his lawyer, he knows the truth. Petrov is just an employee." Trevor spat. "He has a fiduciary duty to the trust, not to Gregory. If the sole beneficiary, you, comes to him with legitimate concerns about the founder's mental state, he has to listen. He's legally obligated to investigate." Amanda was silent, her mind racing. The panic was fading, replaced by the same cold calculation as her husband's. "We'll tell Petrov. We'll tell him we're terrified." Trevor continued, the plan forming rapidly in his mind. "We'll say the shock of the confrontation. It broke him. That he's confused. That he's threatening us. That he's not the man he was. We are his only family. We have to take control of the trust. For his safety. For his own protection. And for ours," Amanda whispered, her eyes hardening. "Exactly," Trevor said. He pulled out his phone and handed it to her. "Find the number for Linden Capital. You're going to make the call. You're his daughter. You're the one who's heartbroken. You have to be the one to sound the alarm." Amanda took the phone. Her hand was no longer shaking. I sat in the worn, comfortable silence of my apartment. The sun was setting, painting the cheap drywall with hues of orange and purple. It was peaceful. The frantic, ugly energy of the confrontation in the parking lot had faded, leaving only a cold, hard certainty. I had cut the line. Now I would just watch them thrash. My real phone, the secure smartphone I kept hidden in my workshop toolbox, buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was not the simple flip phone Amanda knew about. This one was encrypted. I picked it up. The caller ID was just a single letter, P. Petrov. I answered. "Tell me." "The trout has just leaped into the net, Gregory." Petrov's voice was dry professional, but I could hear the faint trace of amusement beneath it. He was enjoying this. "She called the office mainframe not 5 minutes ago, right on schedule." I leaned back in my old chair, closing my eyes, picturing the scene he was painting. "She played it perfectly," Petrov continued. "I have the recording, of course. She started the call with a stammer, a very practiced, very theatrical little sob. I could hear the smile in his voice as he imitated her. "Mr. Petrov," he mimicked, pitching his voice high and wavering. This is Amanda Linden, Gregory Linden's daughter. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to talk to you. I'm so worried." I almost laughed. Worried. A word she only used when her access to my money was threatened. "I played my part, Gregory," Petrov said, dropping the mimicry. "I became the deeply concerned legal counsel. Ms. Linden, of course. What seems to be the trouble is your father, all right," Petrov said. She paused as if gathering the courage to speak a terrible truth. "He's not Mr. Petrov," she had whispered into the phone, her voice thick with fake tears. He's not well. He's not himself. He's been saying such strange things. He seems so confused. He's forgetting everything. We're terrified he's developing dementia." Dementia. The magic word. The legal key they had been searching for. The word that could unlock my entire vault and hand it over to them. They were clumsy, but they were not subtle. "I asked her what made her say that," Petrov said. "I needed her to commit to the lie on a recorded line. And she did. Oh, Gregory, how she did. It's his decisions," she had cried to Petrov. He just canceled the mortgage payment on our house out of nowhere, for no reason. He's making completely irrational decisions, Mr. Petrov. He's trying to make us homeless. He cut us off, and he doesn't even seem to understand what he's doing. We think he's a danger to himself. We believe he's suffering from severe memory loss. Irrational. Danger to himself. Memory loss. She had hit all the legal triggers. She and Trevor had clearly spent the last hour on the internet Googling how to declare a wealthy relative incompetent. "So, Gregory," Petrov said, his voice laced with the satisfaction of a chess master about to checkmate, "I set the trap." I listened, holding my breath, savoring it. "I told her," Petrov said. "Oh my goodness, Ms. Linden. This is dreadful news. You were absolutely right to call me. If Mr. Linden is truly mentally incapacitated, then we have a legal obligation to act. We must protect the trust." "And what did she say?" I asked. She took the bait so fast I almost felt sorry for her. "Oh, thank you, Mr. Petrov, thank you," he mimicked again. "We just want what's best for him. We're just so worried." "So I reeled her in," Petrov continued. "I told her, of course, your concern is admirable. I need you and your husband to come to my office. First thing tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. sharp. We will need to discuss a conservatorship, a temporary transfer of control given the circumstances." I smiled. A cold, tight smile. A transfer of control. He had handed them their fondest wish on a silver platter. He was a brilliant lawyer. "She practically wept with relief," Petrov said. "She said they would be there. But then I added the final piece. The sinker, as you called it. The Harrisons, I whispered. The Harrisons, Petrov confirmed. I told her, and please, Ms. Linden, this is critical. You must bring Mr. and Mrs. Harrison with you. As the co-signers on that $800,000 loan, their testimony about this irrational cancellation will be crucial to proving your father's condition. They have a direct legal and financial stake in his competency, you see. The court will find their testimony invaluable. And she didn't even hesitate. Yes, of course, that makes perfect sense. We'll bring them, 10 a.m. Thank you, Mr. Petrov. You've saved us. Petrov let out a low chuckle. She hung up, Gregory. I can guarantee you right now she is sitting next to her husband, her face flushed with triumph. She thinks she's won. She thinks she's walking into my office tomorrow to be handed the keys to your kingdom. I looked out my small apartment window. The sun was gone. The streetlights cast long, lonely shadows. She's walking into her own execution, Petrov, I said, my voice quiet. And she's bringing her own firing squad. I'll have the boardroom prepared, he replied. And Gregory? Yes. Try to enjoy your evening. I know I'll enjoy mine. I hung up the secure phone. I sat in the darkness of my simple living room, the one they thought was the sum total of my life. They were so confident, so smug, so consumed by their own greed that they couldn't see the truth. They thought they were the predators hunting the weak, senile old man. They had no idea that the trap they were so eagerly walking into was the one I had set for them the moment they called my gift junk. Tomorrow the carpenter would put his tools down, and the CEO of Linden Capital would finally, after 10 long years, go back to work. They met at 9:50 in the morning, not in a lawyer's office, not in a boardroom. They met at La Chandelière, a ridiculously overpriced French bakery a block away from my building, where a single cappuccino costs $20. Petrov had one of his junior associates watching them from a car across the street. He told me everything. They were a perfect portrait of smug conspiracy. The four of them huddled around a tiny white marble table. Amanda was dabbing at her perfectly dry eyes with a silk napkin, performing the role of the heartbroken daughter. Trevor was in his power suit, the charcoal gray one I had through their web of lies paid for. He was leaning in his voice low and urgent. The 4 red scratches on his cheek, a lovely parting gift from Mrs. Harrison, were poorly concealed with Amanda's foundation. It's simple, Trevor was saying, his hands chopping the air. I can picture him. I can hear that arrogant, hollow voice he uses when he thinks he's the smartest man in the room. The man is clearly erratic. We all saw it. Who does that? A multimillionaire pretending to be a homeless carpenter for 10 years. That isn't eccentric. That's unstable. Mr. Harrison, his face still a mottled shade of purple from the rage of the day before, slammed his china cup down. The rattle echoed in the quiet bakery. I don't care about his hobbies, Trevor. I care about $800,000. The bank has called my personal office 3 times this morning. They are not joking. We are on the hook. Exactly, Trevor said, pouncing on the statement like a predator. Which proves my point. His actions are not rational. He is not just a danger to himself. He is a direct financial threat to us. He is vindictive. He is confused. Mrs. Harrison, who looked like she hadn't slept, nodded vigorously. He's senile. It's the only explanation. That absurd little music box, she spat the words. And kicking his own daughter out of the house on Father's Day, it's classic dementia. My great-aunt Beatrice did the exact same thing right before we had to put her in a home. So this is the plan, Trevor said, taking charge. He was the general of his own destruction. We walk in there. We are a united front. Amanda, you are the grieving daughter. You are terrified he's going to hurt himself. You're worried he's giving all his money away to, I don't know, that workshop. He then turned to the Harrisons, the allies he thought he had. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, You are the pillars of this community. You are the objective, concerned third party. You just need to confirm that his actions, specifically canceling that mortgage payment, are not the actions of a sound mind. You must express your grave concern that the man you co-signed a loan with is mentally unfit. Mr. Harrison narrowed his eyes. He was a businessman. He only cared about the bottom line. And what does this get us? What happens when this Petrov agrees the old man is crazy? Trevor smiled, a slick shark's smile. It's simple. We are his only family. I've already had my lawyer look at the standard statutes. The court will have no choice but to appoint us, Amanda, as his conservator. We take control of the trust. We regain control of the assets. He paused for effect. The first thing we do is reinstate the mortgage payment. The bank is satisfied. Your liability is gone. And everything, he said, spreading his hands, goes back to normal. Back to normal. I'm sure Petrov smiled when he told me that part. Normal. Them in my house, me in an institution. Mr. Harrison thought for a moment, caressing his Rolex. The Rolex I paid for. Then he nodded slowly. It's clean. It protects our interests. Fine. We will support your petition. The man is clearly a lunatic. It is our civic duty to intervene. Amanda actually managed to squeeze out a single triumphant tear. Trevor leaned back, crossing his arms. He had done it. He had rallied his troops. He had convinced them all. Good, Trevor said. He looked at his watch. My watch. It's 9:55. Time to go save my father-in-law from himself. Petrov's associate watched them leave the cafe. He said they looked confident. They looked arrogant. They looked like victors walking onto a battlefield where the enemy had already surrendered. They paid their $80 bill for 4 coffees and walked as a united front across the street and into the lobby of the Linden Capitol building. They had no idea they were lambs marching proudly into the slaughterhouse, and that the butcher was waiting for them on the 60th floor. The elevator doors slid open with a soft, expensive whoosh. If the lobby had impressed them, the boardroom annihilated them. It was not a room. It was a statement. The entire north wall was a single sheet of glass overlooking the city. The table was a 30-foot slab of black veinless marble, polished to such a mirror finish, it looked like a dark lake. The chairs were high-backed, ergonomic marvels of leather and chrome. Trevor, for the first time, looked small. He visibly straightened his tie. Mr. Harrison let out a low, impressed whistle. Mrs. Harrison's eyes were wide, darting from the original artwork on the walls to the soaring ceilings. Amanda, however, looked triumphant. This in her mind was already hers. This was the wealth her father had foolishly hidden, and she was here to claim it. Ah, Mr. Crawford, Ms. Linden. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison. Please come in, Petrov said, standing at the head of the table. He was the picture of legal authority. His suit was impeccable. His demeanor was grave concerned and perfectly staged. Thank you for seeing us on such short notice, Mr. Petrov, Trevor said, striding forward, his confidence returning. He was the man of the hour here to solve the problem. And then he saw me. I was already there. I had been there for an hour. I was not at the head of the table. I was sitting in a simple wooden chair, tucked away in the corner of the room, far from the main action. I was wearing the same flannel shirt and work pants from yesterday, the ones still faintly dusted with cherry wood. In my hands, I held a small block of pine, and with a simple carving knife, I was quietly whittling. A small bird was beginning to take shape. The soft scritch-scratch of the blade on the wood was the only sound in the room. Trevor stopped dead. His face flushed. Dad! What are you doing here? Amanda froze, her eyes flashing with pure fury. My presence was not part of their plan. They had expected to handle this about me, not with me. Petrov intervened, his voice smooth as silk. I felt it was important for Mr. Linden to be present given the delicate nature of your concerns, Ms. Linden. Please sit. They exchanged a quick, panicked look. This complicated things. But Trevor, ever the improviser, recovered quickly. He even managed a small, condescending smile. Actually, Mr. Petrov, Trevor said, sitting down and gesturing to me as if I were a piece of evidence. This is perfect. It's good you're seeing him like this. This is exactly what we're talking about. I did not look up. I just continued to carve, letting a small chip of wood fall to the priceless marble floor. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. Mr. Petrov, he boomed, we are here because we are concerned. As co-signers on a significant loan, we were alerted to a highly irrational financial decision made by Mr. Linden. A decision that has put us all in extreme legal and financial jeopardy. Petrov nodded gravely, steepling his fingers. I understand. Ms. Linden, you mentioned on the phone that you believe your father is unwell. Amanda stepped forward. This was her moment. She turned to me, her eyes brimming with the most convincing, heartbreaking false tears I had ever seen. Dad, she said, her voice trembling, we're doing this because we love you. She then turned to Petrov. Mr. Petrov, my father, he's not himself. He hasn't been for a while. He's confused. He's forgetting things. He's been erratic, paranoid. This obsession with this woodwork. She gestured toward me. It's all he does. He's disconnected from reality. She took a ragged breath, a perfect performance of a daughter in pain. Last night he had an episode. He came to our home and caused a terrible scene. And now, this. Canceling the mortgage. He doesn't understand what he's doing. He's lashing out. I see, Petrov said, his voice neutral. And you, Mr. Crawford, you agree with this assessment? Trevor leaned forward, his face a mask of solemn concern. 100%, sir. As his son-in-law, I've tried to manage his eccentricities. But this is no longer just eccentricity. This is a clear sign of mental incompetence. He is a danger to himself and to his own financial security. He is making decisions that are, frankly, insane. Insane. Incompetent. Confused. They had used all the magic words. I continued to carve. The small bird was almost finished. We are here today, Amanda said, her voice firming, taking charge, as his only family, as the people who love him most, to formally request that Linden Capital take action. Petrov raised an eyebrow. What action precisely are you requesting, Ms. Linden? Trevor spoke. Given his obvious mental instability and as the sole beneficiary of the trust, we are petitioning for a temporary transfer of control. We need to be appointed as conservators of the Linden Trust. To protect him from himself. To ensure his assets are managed. Rationally. Amanda nodded, adding the final crucial point. And of course, she said with a quick, sympathetic glance toward the Harrisons, to immediately reinstate the mortgage payment. To make sure his financial obligations are met. We just want to fix what he broke. They had done it. They had walked into the room. They had seen the man who held all the power, and blinded by their own greed and arrogance they had pointed at him, and in front of a lawyer, and witnesses they had declared him a senile, incompetent fool. They had no idea what they had just signed. Petrov looked at them, then at me. I blew a small curl of pine wood from the bird's newly formed wing. I looked up for the first time and met my daughter's eyes. I smiled. Is that all? I asked. I kept my head down. I focused on the small, smooth block of pine in my hands. The scritch-scratch of my knife was a small, comforting sound in the vast, cold silence of the boardroom. I was the old man in the corner, the prop for their play, the senile carpenter they were here to save. Petrov let their accusations hang in the air. Insane, incompetent, confused, a danger to himself. The words echoed off the marble and glass. He turned his full professional attention to Amanda. His face was a perfect mask of grave concern. Ms. Linden, your father's condition sounds deeply, deeply troubling. It is, Amanda said. Her voice was a masterpiece of feigned empathy. She even reached across the table to put her hand on Trevor's, the two of them a united front against my supposed madness. We didn't want to believe it, Mr. Petrov. But his actions, they're not him. He's lashing out. Petrov turned his gaze to Trevor. And you, Mr. Crawford, you used the term mentally unfit. That is a very specific legal term. Trevor leaned forward. He could smell the blood in the water. He thought this was his moment of victory. Absolutely, he said, his voice firm and confident. He is making irrational financial decisions that are frankly insane. I mean, look at him. He gestured to me in the corner with my worn flannel shirt and my piece of wood. A multimillionaire, if that's even true, pretending to be homeless, canceling an $800,000 mortgage payment for no reason. What sane person does that? He's vindictive, he's confused, and he is not in his right mind. Mr. Harrison, sensing the end was near, chimed in his deep voice, a low growl. We agree. The man is a liability. Our good name is on that loan. We are here to support this petition. He needs to be managed. Managed. Like a sick, unpredictable animal. I carefully shaved a thin, perfect curl of wood from the bird's wing. It floated down and landed silently on the flawless marble floor. Petrov nodded slowly. He tapped his pen on the legal pad in front of him. Once, twice, 3 times. The small sounds were like a judge's gavel. Good, Petrov said. The word was quiet, but it changed the temperature of the room by 20 degrees. Amanda's performed smile wavered. Trevor's shoulders tensed. I'm sorry. Trevor asked, his confidence faltering for the first time. Petrov finally slowly allowed himself to smile. It was not a kind smile. It was not a sympathetic smile. It was the smile of a shark that has just sensed the blood in the water. It was the smile I knew well. The smile that meant I am about to utterly destroy you. I said, good, Petrov repeated. His voice was suddenly sharp, crisp, all pretense of concern gone. I am so very glad you said all of that. He stood up, placing his hands flat on the marble table. Confused, memory loss, dementia, irrational, mentally unfit, insane. You have all been very specific, very clear. You have on a recorded line and now here in front of witnesses and your legal co-signers. You have all formally accused the founder of this trust of being mentally incompetent. Trevor frowned. The trap was still invisible to him. Yes, that's correct. That's why we're here. To help him. And you are petitioning, Petrov continued, his voice like silk-wrapped steel, to have the control of this multi-million-dollar trust transferred to you. Is that correct? As his only family, yes, Amanda said. Her voice was smaller now. To protect his interests. Perfect, Petrov said. He turned and walked not to his desk, but to the massive wall screen. He pressed a button on a remote. The screen, which had been displaying a piece of abstract art, flickered to life. Because you see, Petrov said, his voice filling the room. Mr. Gregory Linden and his late wife Lila were very, very specific when they drafted these trust documents. They were prescient. They anticipated a day, a moment, a person, just like this one. He looked directly at Amanda. Her face went pale. Your mother, Ms. Linden, Petrov said, his voice softening with what sounded like genuine respect. knew that great wealth could attract bad actors. She worried it could corrupt. She insisted on a failsafe, a protection, not for the beneficiary, but from the beneficiary. What? What are you talking about? Amanda whispered. I am talking, Petrov said, about the one clause in this 20-page document that you clearly never bothered to read. The one clause that was designed precisely for you, Trevor. For this exact meeting. For this exact accusation. He hit another button. The screen was filled with dense legal text. He zoomed in on one section. I didn't need to read it. I knew it by heart. I present to you, Petrov announced to the room, Clause 11.2, a beautiful piece of legal work if I do say so myself. We call it the Capacity and Bad Faith Clause. Petrov's smile vanished. The warmth in the room, which had been thin and artificial to begin with, evaporated. The air turned cold. He looked at Amanda, and his expression was no longer that of a concerned family lawyer. It was the look of a prosecutor. Thank you, Ms. Linden, he said. His voice was no longer smooth. It was sharp like a shard of ice. Thank you for being so clear. Thank you for using the words confused, irrational, and memory loss. And thank you, Mr. Crawford, for confirming your belief that Mr. Linden is insane and mentally incompetent. You have both on this day formally petitioned this firm for a conservatorship based on a bad faith claim of mental incapacity. Trevor nodded, still oblivious. Exactly. We're glad you see the urgency. So what are the next steps? The next step, Petrov said, is to review the evidence. Amanda frowned. Evidence, we are the evidence. We're his family. Yes, you are, Petrov said. And as such, your testimony is crucial. In fact, I have your initial testimony right here. He pressed a button on the sleek console embedded in the marble table. The room was so quiet that the small click sounded like a gunshot. And then, Amanda's voice filled the room. Not her real voice. Her performed voice from yesterday. The high-pitched, trembling, tearful voice I had heard over my secure line. Mr. Petrov, this is Amanda Linden. I'm so worried. Amanda's face went white. Trevor's head snapped toward the speakers hidden in the ceiling. He's not himself, Mr. Petrov. He's confused. We're terrified he's developing dementia. What is this? Trevor stammered, half rising from his chair. That's illegal, Mrs. Harrison shrieked. You can't record someone without their permission. In this state, ma'am, with one-party consent, I absolutely can. Petrov replied without looking at her. His eyes were locked on Amanda. The recording continued. He's making completely irrational decisions. He's lashing out. We think he's suffering from severe memory loss. The audio clicked off. The silence that rushed back in was suffocating. Amanda looked like she was going to be sick. The color had drained from her face. I was concerned, she gasped. You were establishing a legal record, Petrov corrected her. You were building a fraudulent case using specific legal terminology to seize control of this trust. You have just provided us with irrefutable proof of your intent. Trevor stood up fully, now his chair scraping loudly on the marble. This is entrapment. You're twisting our words. I am doing no such thing, Petrov said. I am simply following the exact procedures laid out by the founder, Mr. Gregory Linden, for this specific anticipated event. What procedure? Amanda whispered. Her voice was barely audible. Petrov turned his gaze to the massive screen on the wall, the screen that still showed the highlighted text of Clause 11.2, the procedure, Ms. Linden, that your mother insisted we include in this document. The procedure she put in place to protect your father from you. He picked up a laser pointer, and a sharp red dot appeared on the screen. He read the words aloud, his voice clear and final like a judge reading a death sentence. Clause 11, Section 2. The capacity and bad faith clause. Should the primary beneficiary Amanda Linden and/or any spouse legally associated with the beneficiary, Trevor Crawford, make a bad faith attempt to declare the founder, Gregory Linden, mentally incompetent, senile, or otherwise incapacitated? He paused, letting the words sink in. Trevor stared at the screen, his mouth open. He was finally reading the fine print he had ignored for so long. Petrov continued, or should they engage in a pattern of slander against the founder's character, or conspire to seize control of the trust's assets through fraudulent legal or medical means? I watched Amanda. Her hands were shaking so hard she had to grip the edge of the table. I watched Mr. Harrison. He was reading the text, and his face, which had been purple with rage at me, was now pale with a new dawning terror for himself. Petrov raised his voice slightly for the final devastating lines. This action shall be deemed an act of profound and irreversible familial betrayal. It shall constitute an immediate and absolute breach of the Lila Linden moral covenant. The room was silent. I set my small finished wooden bird on the table in front of me. Petrov lowered the laser pointer. He looked at Amanda. He looked at Trevor. You, he said, have just breached the covenant. Petrov's voice was the only sound in the 60-story high tomb. The red laser dot on the screen was like a sniper's sight aimed directly at my daughter's future. This action shall be deemed an act of profound and irreversible familial betrayal, he read. It shall constitute an immediate and absolute breach of the Lila Linden moral covenant. The room was so still I could hear the faint hum of the air conditioning. Amanda's face was no longer pale. It was a waxy, artificial white. Trevor was frozen, his mouth half open as he stared at the words on the screen, finally understanding the trap he had sprung on himself. Mr. Harrison's eyes were darting between the screen, me and his son, his mind clearly calculating the financial fallout. Petrov clicked the laser pointer off. He turned his head slowly, and his gaze, cold and devoid of any human empathy, settled directly on my daughter. Therefore, he said, his voice dropping to a formal, devastating finality, as per the explicit non-negotiable terms of Clause 11(2), which you have just triggered with your own recorded bad faith testimony. He paused, letting the weight of the moment crush them. It is my duty as Chief Counsel of Linden Capital and executor of this trust to inform you, Ms. Linden, that you are, as of this precise moment, immediately and permanently disinherited from any and all assets, properties, and funds related to the Linden Trust. Congratulations, Amanda. You have just successfully disinherited yourself. The silence that followed was a physical thing. It was a vacuum pulling all the air from the room. It lasted for 3 full seconds. Then Amanda's face crumpled. It was not a cry. It was a sound I had never heard a human being make. A high-pitched, tearing shriek of pure, agonizing loss. It was the sound of a life of entitlement and arrogance evaporating in an instant. No! Trevor exploded. He didn't yell at me. He didn't yell at Petrov. He reacted with the blind, stupid violence of a trapped animal. He kicked his own chair, a $1,000 designer piece, sending it flying backward. It slammed into the glass wall with a sickening crack, shattering the tempered safety glass into a million tiny diamonds. "This is illegal!" he roared, his voice hoarse with panic, his face bright red, the scratches from Mrs. Harrison standing out like bloody warnings. "You can't do this! This is a trick! You trapped us!" Mr. Harrison was on his feet. "He's right. This is fraud. You can't just have a secret clause. We will sue you. We will sue this entire company." Amanda was just screaming now, a continuous horrible wail, her hands clutching her hair. No, 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 no. I remained in my corner. I said nothing. I just watched. I watched the foundation of their lives turn to dust. Petrov did not flinch. He did not raise his voice. He waited with the patience of a predator until Trevor's roar subsided into a desperate pant. "Illegal, Mr. Crawford?" Petrov asked, his voice laced with a cold, cutting amusement. Fraudulent, sir, trapped is simply the word a guilty man uses for being outsmarted. He gestured to the document on the screen. This document was drafted signed by your wife, witnessed by 2 independent parties, and notarized 10 years ago. It is, I assure you, perhaps the most ironclad trust in the entire state. Your wife agreed to its terms when she accepted the house. He then pointed not at the screen, but at a small dark dome in the ceiling corner, a place no one ever looks. And as for your performance here today, Petrov continued, I must inform you that this entire meeting has been recorded. Your petition for conservatorship, your wife's tearful claims of my dementia, your mutual slanderous agreement that Mr. Linden is insane, unfit, and confused, your stated fraudulent intent to seize control of his assets. It's all on a hard drive. He smiled. As is your phone call from yesterday, Ms. Linden. The one where you so clearly established your bad faith claim of memory loss and dementia before you even walked in here. Amanda stopped crying. She just stared at him, her mouth open in mute horror. Trevor, I could see, was finally understanding. He hadn't just lost the house. He hadn't just lost the inheritance. He had, in a single arrogant morning, handed his enemy a loaded gun. You, Trevor whispered, you recorded us. Of course, Petrov said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. This is a billion-dollar firm, Mr. Crawford, not a high school debate. We document everything, especially when a beneficiary and her checks notes, financially desperate husband come in making wild accusations of mental incompetence against the founder. It's called due diligence. Petrov stacked his papers into a neat pile. You have, in this very room on camera, officially confessed to conspiracy to commit fraud against this trust. You didn't just breach the covenant, you set it on fire. You didn't just get disinherited, Amanda. You have quite possibly committed a felony. Mrs. Harrison made a small choking sound and collapsed back into her chair. The room was silent again. The only sound was Amanda's ragged hitching breath. She looked at me. For the first time, she truly saw me. Not the simple carpenter. Not the embarrassing father. She saw the man who had just taken everything from her. Her eyes were hollow. How, she whispered. How could you? I finally stood up. I pocketed my carving knife. I picked up my small finished wooden bird and my old battered music box. I walked to the table and stood directly in front of her. You kicked me out, I said, my voice quiet, but it carried in the dead silence. You called my wife's memory junk. You were ashamed of me. I looked at Trevor. You were going to steal my house. I looked at all 4 of them. You thought I was weak. You thought I was stupid. You thought I was nothing. I placed the small, smooth wooden bird on the table in front of her. The truth is, Gupta, I said, I'm not. Mr. Harrison's face, which had been a mask of arrogant judgment, crumpled. He was a man of numbers. He was a man of leverage. And he had just watched his leverage evaporate. I saw the gears turning in his head. The panic was no longer about my sanity. It was about his solvency. He spun away from me, his eyes wide with a new terrible understanding. He looked at Petrov. Wait a minute, he said, his voice a low, strangled sound. Wait. If she is disinherited, if the trust, if the payments have stopped. He finally looked at his son-in-law, Trevor, who was still staring at me in mute, abject horror. Who, Mr. Harrison asked, his voice dangerously quiet, is going to pay that damned mortgage? Petrov, who had remained standing, placed his hands behind his back. He looked at Mr. Harrison with something approaching pity. That is an excellent question, Mr. Harrison. And the answer is, no one. Mrs. Harrison let out a small, bird-like sound. What? What do you mean, no one? I mean, Petrov said, his voice projecting across the room. Linden Capital, as the sole trustee, has, as of 9:03 this morning, suspended all payments on that loan. The bank has been notified of the breach of covenant. The default process has officially begun. Default, Trevor whispered the word. Yes, Petrov continued. The bank will of course move to seize the asset, the house. But as I am sure your own financial advisors will confirm, Mr. Harrison, the property market has softened. The house after foreclosure will likely not cover the full $800,000 principal. And since you, Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, are the legal co-signers on that note. Petrov did not need to finish the sentence. He let it hang in the air, a financial guillotine waiting to fall. Mr. Harrison's face turned a shade of purple I had never seen on a human being. His entire body trembled. He did not look at me. He did not look at Petrov. He turned very slowly to face his son-in-law, to face Trevor, who was still frozen, his mind unable to process the speed of his own destruction. You, Mr. Harrison whispered. Trevor flinched, taking an involuntary step back. Dad, now, I can fix this. I didn't know. You, Harrison roared. The sound was not human. It was the sound of an animal, a bull. You lying snake oil! Scum! He did not walk. He lunged. He moved faster than I thought a man his age could move his hands, grabbing the front of Trevor's expensive suit, bunching the material in his fists. You told me your father-in-law was poor. He screamed, his face inches from Trevor's. You told me this was a formality, a no-risk guarantee. You told me you had the assets. You told me you were a genius. He shoved Trevor hard. Trevor stumbled backward, his heel catching on the leg of the heavy marble table. He went down, crashing onto the priceless floor, a sprawl of panicked limbs and ruined arrogance. You ruined us! Harrison howled, kicking at Trevor's side. $800,000 our reputation. We're going to be bankrupt. Mrs. Harrison, seeing her husband's violence, finally snapped. But she did not attack me. She turned on my daughter. This is your fault, she shrieked, her voice like a siren. You and your worthless, lying family. You did this. You trapped my son. Amanda, who had been catatonic, was now being screamed at by her mother-in-law. It was chaos. Trevor was scrambling away on his hands and knees. Mr. Wu. Harrison, in his blind rage, grabbed one of the heavy leather chairs and raised it over his head. I will kill you, you son of a bitch, he bellowed. I just stood in my corner. I watched. I watched the sophisticated family, the important people, tear each other apart, like the animals they were. Petrov, calmly, without a trace of alarm, pressed a small, discreet button on the desk console. Security, he said into the intercom, his voice perfectly even. We seem to be having a vigorous disagreement in the main boardroom. Please send a team up to escort the Harrisons and the Crawfords from the premises. The end had come. My work here was done. Amidst the chaos, I stood up. My movement was slow, deliberate. It was so out of place with the screaming and the violence that it acted like a magnet for their attention. Mr. Harrison paused, his hands still gripping Trevor's suit, his face a mask of apoplectic rage. Mrs. Zhou. Harrison's hysterical accusations against Amanda died in her throat. Trevor, still on the floor, looked at me, his eyes wide with a new kind of fear. And Amanda, she just stared, her face white and streaked, completely and utterly broken. The only sound was the soft scratch of my boots on the marble as I walked from my corner. I ignored the shattered glass. I ignored the overturned chair. I walked past the panting, furious Mr. Harrison. I walked past Trevor, who was now scrambling backward on his hands and knees. I walked to the head of the 30-foot marble table, to the spot where I had first sat. My old canvas tote bag was still on the floor. I reached into it. My hand closed around the simple brown paper package. The one Trevor had set aside by the breadbasket last night. The one I had quietly retrieved. I pulled it out. The twine was still tied around it. I unwrapped it slowly, deliberately. The brown paper crackled loudly in the suffocating silence. I took out the cherry wood music box. Lila's music box. I walked over to where my daughter Amanda was sitting, frozen in her chair. Her eyes followed the box as if it were a bomb. I placed it on the table in front of her. The soft, warm wood was a stark contrast to the cold, black, sterile marble. The sound it made was quiet but final. A soft thud. Amanda flinched. I looked at her, not with anger, not with sadness. I looked at her with nothing. A complete, cold, empty void. "You were right, Amanda," I said. My voice was quiet, but it filled the entire room. She stared at me, trembling. "You were right last night," I continued. It doesn't match your decor. It doesn't fit with your new, important life. It doesn't belong with the Rolexes and the BMWs. I leaned in just a little so she could not look away. And it doesn't match you anymore. Your mother, Lila, she was full of warmth and honesty and character. This box is a part of her. And you are a cold, empty stranger I do not recognize." Amanda let out a small, wounded sound, as if I had physically struck her. "So I am taking it back," I said. I picked the box up, cradling it in my hand. "I am taking her back. She does not belong here with you." I put the box carefully inside my canvas tote. Then I turned my gaze to Trevor. He was still on the floor, leaning against the table, a pathetic heap of a man. "Oh, and Trevor," I said, my voice conversational as if discussing the weather. "Just so we are clear, the bank will foreclose on the house in 30 days. Mr. Harrison is correct. He will be legally responsible for the full $800,000 note he was foolish enough to co-sign for you. That is now his problem, and your problem." Mr. Harrison's face went, if possible, even paler. "My lawyer," I said, gesturing to Petrov, who was watching from the doorway, "will be sending the formal eviction notice this afternoon. You have 30 days to remove your belongings." I walked toward the door, past the frozen statues of the Harrison family, past my weeping daughter, past the broken man on the floor. I stopped at the threshold. "Good luck finding a new place to live," I said. "You are evicted." Petrov and I stepped out of the boardroom. The heavy door swung shut behind us, its mechanism muffling the sounds within. But it could not muffle them completely. Even through the thick, soundproofed wood, we could hear the muffled roar of Mr. Harrison. We could hear the high-pitched, hysterical shriek of Mrs. Harrison. We could hear the sound of something heavy, probably another chair, crashing against the wall. Petrov did not look back. Neither did I. We walked down the long, silent marble corridor. The contrast was stark. Inside that room was chaos. A family, a life, a web of lies, all tearing itself apart in a storm of greed and humiliation. Out here, there was only silence. The sounds of their destruction faded with every step we took. The polished marble floor reflected the bright, cold light from the windows. We reached the private elevator at the end of the hall. The steel doors opened instantly, recognizing my presence. We stepped inside. The doors closed, sealing us in perfect, total silence. The war was over. As the elevator began its smooth 60-story descent, Petrov finally spoke. He was not looking at me. He was looking at his own reflection in the polished steel wall. "So, Gregory," he asked, his voice quiet, "what will you do with the house?" I thought about it for a moment. The $800,000 house. The McMansion in the Heights. The stage for their arrogance. The symbol of their greed. I thought about the forged memories and the pain it now represented. I could keep it. I could rent it out. I could let it sit empty as a monument to their failure. But I knew Lila would not have wanted that. It was an asset. And assets were meant to be used, not hoarded as trophies of a battle won. "Sell it," I said. Petrov nodded slowly. "And the funds?" "Liquidate it all," I said. Take every penny from the sale. Take the $4,500 a month that used to pay for their lives. Take all of it. The elevator continued its silent fall. I want you to create a new endowment, I continued. A permanent one. I want you to fully fund the community woodshop. Buy them the new building they've been dreaming of. Get them new lathes, new saws, new tools for the kids. Make sure they never have to hold a bake sale again. Petrov looked at me, a rare, genuine smile touching the corners of his mouth. A noble use, Gregory. What will you call this new endowment? I reached into my canvas tote bag. My hand brushed against the cool, smooth wood of the small bird I had carved that morning. The little pine bird that Leo, the 10-year-old boy, had looked at with such wonder. The simple, honest thing I had created with my own hands. I thought of the music box. The one I had made for Amanda. The one that now sat in my bag, a symbol of a love that was lost, a connection that was severed. No, I would not let them taint this too. Call it the Lila Linden Workshop, Shasimai said, for a woman who knew the value of building something real. The elevator doors opened to the ground floor garage. The cool subterranean air washed over us. I walked toward my old beaten-up truck, my sanctuary, my costume, the one I no longer needed to wear. Gregory, Petrov said, stopping me with a hand on my shoulder. Are you all right? I stopped. I looked at the old truck. I looked at the small carved bird in my hand. I thought of the chaos I had left on the 60th floor. The screaming, the tears, the broken lives. I thought of my daughter and the stranger she had become. A wave of sadness should have hit me, a wave of regret, of loss. But it didn't. Instead, I felt light. The $80 million burden I had carried for 10 years, the secret that had forced me to hide the promise to Lila, that had twisted my life into a lie. It was finally gone. I walked out of the garage into the bright, warm afternoon sun. I stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, letting the light hit my face. I looked down at the small, simple wooden bird in my hand. And for the first time since Lila died, for the first time in 3 long, lonely years, I felt completely and utterly at peace. This story is a powerful reminder that money does not define a person's worth. Character does. Gregory's immense wealth, hidden behind a life of simplicity, became a mirror reflecting his family's true nature. It revealed that his daughter and son-in-law, obsessed with the appearance of success, were morally bankrupt and valued greed over love. The ultimate lesson is that kindness must never be mistaken for weakness. True strength isn't about the money you have. It's about having the courage to protect your dignity, even if it means walking away from the very people you once loved. What would you have done in Gregory's position? Have you ever had to teach a greedy family member a lesson? Let us know your story in the comments below. And if you believe in the power of setting boundaries, please like this video and subscribe for more stories where the underestimated finally get their justice.